What's your reaction? First off, what does Eric Swalwell have access to that you think China might be interested in, being that you're on a similar committee in a separate chamber?
Good morning, Brian. Any member of the House Intelligence or Senate Intelligence Committee has access to some of the government's most sensitive reporting and analysis. Obviously, any foreign adversary would love to have access to that information. I guess Eric Swalwell says he's a victim in all of this. If that's the case, what he should do is come forward and have a no-holds-barred press conference and explain exactly what his relationship with this Chinese spy was. He keeps hiding behind the cloak of classified information, but there's nothing classified about his fundraising practices or his social life.
It's not the,
and the fact that he
Senator,
won't have
the White House.
The fact that he won't do that.
He's blaming the White House. It's Axios that did this over the course of a year.
Yeah, I mean, Axios is not exactly a right-wing outlet or a tool of the White House. And the fact that he and Nancy Pelosi won't come clean and explain exactly what his relationship with this Chinese spy was suggests that there's some information there that they don't want to reveal.
Sure. You know, it is some information that we've been talking about here on this channel. And, you know, whether it's Swalwell or the Hunter Biden story, you know, Fox is the only one trying to ask Joe Biden about Hunter Biden out on the trail. What I think is curious, though, is that the New York Times just Googled it. They still have not even touched the fact that Eric Swalwell had this relationship with somebody who is purported to be a Chinese spy. You have a history with the New York Times. I believe you were briefly an op-ed writer there. So what do you think is going on with the New York Times? Why are they afraid to tell their people about this story?
Yeah, Steve, back when I owned the New York Times, I wouldn't have allowed this kind of malfeasance to go forward. It is revealing that the New York Times is concealing what is a bombshell story, that the fact that a member of the House Intelligence Committee had a relationship with a Chinese spy, and that their readers won't know about that unless they tune in to Fox News. It makes you just wonder just how deeply in the pocket of Chinese interest are these major media corporations. And look, the New York Times and the Washington Post has gotten money from running Chinese propaganda over the years. Many TV stations are owned by or affiliated with major movie studios that are trying to get access to the Chinese theater market. There's a reason why there's no bad guys from China in major Hollywood movies. It's because they're owned by companies like Disney or like Comcast Universal that want access to the Chinese market. It makes you wonder how much the American media industry is in the pocket of Chinese interests, that they won't cover these huge stories.
Well, that's an explosive claim, and I know you're just asking the question, but what do you think? Do you think that the major media outfits have been influenced by China?
Well, we've gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars from them, and obviously these movie studios, which own many of these news networks, have huge multi-billion-dollar interest in trying to get access to the Chinese market. And I think, you know, if it was the oil and gas industry or the mining industry or some other disfavored industry in New York and Los Angeles, you can bet that the New York Times would be running 18,000-word exposés on these conflicts of interest.
I never thought about that.
Right. And yeah, our biggest threat, coronavirus, don't forget, came from China. They're not answering our questions about that. New York Times isn't covering Swalwell. Look at social media. They're barely covering the Hunter Biden thing, censoring Republicans. And then we just learned there was an investigation. Fox News looked into it to find out some of the donors that were donating to Joe Biden's campaign. And tens of thousands of dollars came from executives on Facebook or inside Twitter. Look at this list. I mean, it goes on and on of the number of executives that gave a lot of money to Joe Biden's campaign.
How much did they give to Trump?
They gave less than 300. Two Facebook executives gave less than 300. Yeah. 0 Twitter executives gave to Trump's campaign. What's your reaction?
I think those Facebook executives may be called soon-to-be former Facebook executives. This shouldn't surprise anyone. I mean, Silicon Valley is closely tied to the Democratic Party in general, and Joe Biden and Barack Obama in particular. A lot of these companies rose to their gigantic monopolistic status under the Obama-Biden administration. But it really reflects a deeper trend in which you have the major professions that are donating to Joe Biden were things like, you know, diversity consultants, lawyers, financial executives. If you look at Donald Trump's donors, though, and their occupations, some of the most common occupations were things like homemaker, truck driver, welder, plumber, police officer. It really reflects the base of support of the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party.
All right, so let's switch gears and talk about, I know it's been an obsession of yours and everybody in the Senate, but you've been as offensive as anybody, and that is the 2 Senate seats in Georgia will decide the balance of power in the Senate. Vice President Biden was able to assemble in a parking lot a group of people that I imagine voted for him in Georgia, and here's a little of his remarks, which he tends to shout.
And what about the one and only Stacey Abrams? Stacey, if we had 10 of you, we could rule the whole world. God love you. Is there anyone who's done more to make sure the voice of every Georgian is heard? I don't think so. Stacey Abrams, you're a hero. You're the one that got this going. And we all thank you. And of course, honk for your next United States Senator, John Ossoff.
Yep, I'm
Go
not sure.
Ossoff.
That's not his name.
Yeah, unbelievable. Stacey Abrams, by the way, Stacey, congratulations on not conceding the election. I mean, oops, I shouldn't bring that up. By the way, she's getting credit for signing up 85,000 people who did not vote in the November election. But Karl Rove dove into those numbers. He said 55,000 of them are on the automatic list. So that means there's only 30,000 difference. How many of those are new voters? Only 12,130. So she may be a hero, and the only way to show someone's a hero is to honk. We know that. But, Senator, what are you up against with Stacey Abrams? Is she really a force?
First, I got to say, those outdoor car rallies make me feel like he's speaking in a traffic jam with all that ridiculous honking going on. Well, so Joe Biden may not know John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock's names, but I guarantee you he knows their radical agenda, because he also said at that event yesterday that if Georgia elects 2 Republicans, the Republicans are going to block Joe Biden's agenda. And he's found us out. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to stop them from raising your taxes and taking your guns and increasing the price of your energy and packing the Supreme Court and making Washington, D.C. a state. Those are the things that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock will do if they're elected to the United States Senate. I bet that's not what the people of Georgia want. They want people who will be a check and a balance on a radical Democratic agenda. They don't want to turn over the United States Senate to Chuck Schumer.
Let's talk a little bit about what's going on. Let's move from the John Ossoff race to the U.S. Senate. And it sounds as if things are closer on some sort of a COVID deal, which is good news because there are so many people who are hurting, Senator. Give us an update, because you know what's going on.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, Steve. I just want to say it's so tragic we couldn't have passed this bill 4 months ago.
Right.
It's looking like we're going to settle somewhere on what the Senate proposed and voted on with the majority of the Senate back in early September, almost 4 months ago, that would get money to those who are hurting, those who have been impacted by this pandemic that China unleashed on the world. The waitresses, the busboys, the bartenders, the janitors, the dry cleaners, people who are out of work, who are struggling at Christmas time, who are trying to make ends meet. But Nancy Pelosi admitted last week that she held all this up for months simply because she didn't want Donald Trump and the Republicans to have a victory before the election. It is cynical and it is heartless. So where we stand right now is the last 2 sticking points. The Democrats have been demanding a no-strings-attached bailout for cities and states who don't even have income losses. We've held the line on that. Senator McConnell has rightly said, in my opinion, Democrats should give up on that. We will compromise and not demand legal liability protection for schools and universities and businesses who are doing the right thing. That's the way you make legislation in Washington. But what we need to do is get this bill passed and get money in the hands of people who've been impacted so they can put food on the table this month, get gifts for the kids, pay the mortgage at the end of the month. We don't need any more delay from Nancy Pelosi and the House Democrats.
What are the Democrats' response when you say things like that on the floor? Do you ever say, this person owns a restaurant, they can't pay their employees? Brian interviewed a lady who said, I have an employee who's pregnant and she came into my office and I didn't have the heart to let her go. It's Christmas time. I can't really afford to pay my employees, but I can't let her go. She's a single mom. She's going to have a baby and it's Christmas time. I mean, these stories, how do they not address this? How do they not pass anything? They're telling them to shut down their restaurants, but then the PPP money ran out in August. It's been 5 months. They're telling them to shut down their restaurant, but yet they're not giving them any compensation.
I know, Ainsley, it's totally unjustifiable, but the Democrats, have a key constituency, which is Democratic governors and mayors who have mismanaged their own states and their own cities for decades, who want a no-strings-attached bailout. At the very same time, they're preventing people from making a living, from putting food on the table for their kids, like Eric Garcetti out in Los Angeles, letting movie studios set up outdoor dining but not letting small restaurants, or Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio once again shutting down dining in New York City. You see this across the country. All of these Democratic governors and mayors are running to Washington, running to their patrons like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, demanding bailouts at a time when we should be allowing people to earn a living in a safe and responsible fashion and getting help to those who need it, who have been impacted, who because of this virus simply can't earn the money to make ends meet. That's what we should have done back in September. That's what Republicans offered at the time. Right. I hope Democrats will finally take yes for an answer this week.
Yeah, they were up to $1.8 trillion. Now you can't agree on $900 billion. Finally, Senator, yesterday Mitch McConnell called the White House and called Kevin McCarthy and said, I'm going to acknowledge Joe Biden as president-elect. Where do you stand? Kevin McCarthy says not yet. I don't know what the president said back to Mitch McConnell. What does Senator Tom Cotton say?
Well, Brian, the Electoral College met on Monday and they voted, but the president also has legal challenges going forward, and those challenges should be decided in the courts based on the law and the evidence. He's also released money for Joe Biden to begin contingency planning for his transition. You know what he hasn't done? He hasn't sicked the Department of Justice and the FBI on Joe Biden's campaign the way Barack Obama and Joe Biden did. He hasn't fabricated evidence to get wiretaps on Joe Biden's campaign staff. He hasn't started calling for the impeachment before Joe Biden even might take the oath of office, which is what Democrats did to Donald Trump in January of 2017. That's what the Democrats did after 2016. So you can spare me the crocodile tears from all these Democrats about breaking norms. They're the ones that were breaking norms 4 years ago.
Right. Just for the record, I did not cry. I'm just saying, I'm just relaying which Mr. McConnell said yesterday on the floor. Senator Tom Cotton, thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
All right.